Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
So much to get through tonight. My Mark Meets guest is the legendary psychotherapist and author, Professor Steve Peters. He has helped some of our most successful British athletes, including Steven Gerrard and Bradley Wiggins. In the big question, is Britain broke? Can we bounce back? How do we tackle the cost of living crisis? We'll speak to some top economists on that one. Plus, my all-star panel tonight featuring reality star and entrepreneur Ashley Horgan-Wallace, comedian Tommy Sandu and political commentator Alice Grant. My big opinion about eco-extremists is on the other side of the headlines. Plus, it's Selfie Sunday, so I want pictures of you. Mark at gbnews.uk. Very busy 2 hours. I'll see you after the headlines with Miranda.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has announced the UK is stepping up sanctions and military support for Ukraine, pledging to do everything in his power to starve Putin's war machine. His words follow that of Ukraine's foreign minister, who's accused Russia of a deliberate massacre in the town of Bucha outside Kiev. In an address, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says war crimes in Bucha and other occupied cities are to be examined by the UN Security Council on Tuesday. Former world heavyweight boxing champion Vladimir Klitschko was on the ground in Bucha following the attack.
This is not a special operation. This is not military objects. This is civilians. They've been shot in the head with the tied hands behind their back. This is genocide of the Ukrainian population. And that's exactly what Russian regime, Putin's regime, Russian army is doing. Killing the civilians with the tied hands behind their back and with a shot in their heads.
Well, meanwhile, Russia's pullback of troops from Ukraine's capital is not a real withdrawal. That's according to NATO's Secretary General. Speaking to CNN, Jens Stoltenberg warned Moscow could be repositioning forces for further attacks. President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's now strengthening Ukraine's defences in the east of the country. Plumes of smoke were seen over the southern city of Odessa after Russia's defence ministry claimed strikes have destroyed an oil refinery and 3 fuel depots. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister also says evacuations from Mariopol and Luhansk have taken place today. Irina Vereshchuk said over 2,500 people from the conflict zones have now left. She added Ukrainian officials were in talks with Russia to allow Red Cross buses to enter Mariupol to help more people. Earlier, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss tweeted that Russia was blocking life-saving humanitarian support from reaching the besieged city. At least 6 people have been killed and 10 others injured after a shooting in the city of Sacramento in California. Police have closed off several streets in the area while they investigate. It comes just over a month after a man shot himself and his 3 children, along with another person, at a church in the city. Mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, says more must be done to end America's shootings.
This senseless epidemic of gun violence must be addressed. How many unending tragedies does it take before we begin to cure the sickness in this country?
And more than 200 people have been arrested as climate change protests have continued for a 3rd day at oil terminals across the UK. Officers say the arrests were for criminal damage, obstructing the highway and public order. Activists from the group Just Stop Oil are demanding the government end new oil and gas projects. Well, on TV, online and DAB plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Many thanks, Miranda. It's Sunday, the 3rd of April. You're watching and listening to Mark Dolan tonight. We've got a perfect Sunday evening of entertainment for you. Big debate, strong topics, and plenty of laughs along the way. Remember, we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. My Mark Meets guest is the legendary psychotherapist and author who has helped multiple British athletes, including Ronnie O'Sullivan, Bradley Wiggins, and Sir Chris Hoy, to achieve sporting success. Professor Steve Peters, the author of the international best-selling book The Chimp Paradox, tells us about his latest book. It's called A Path Through the Jungle, and it could just change your life. In the big question, is Britain broke? Can we bounce back? How do we tackle the cost of living crisis? We'll speak to 2 top economists on that one. Plus, my all-star panel tonight featuring political commentator Alice Grant, comedian, podcaster and presenter Tommy Sandu, and brand new to the show, a warm welcome to reality star, author and entrepreneur Aisling Horgan-Wallace. There will be, of course, lots of questions and debates during the show in our news agenda, such as, is divorce now too easy? Is the digital assistant Alexa sexist? Should you go to work even if you've got COVID? And is the age of making phone calls over? We'll discuss all of that. The age of email is certainly not over, and I want to hear from you throughout the programme. Plus, it's at this time every Sunday that we do Selfie Sunday. I want to get to know you better, so I want to see you. Please send in your pics tonight and every Sunday. I was doing a comedy show earlier this week, and I came across this lovely viewer of the show. This is Ro. What a handsome devil Ro is, look at that. And his lovely wife, Suzanne, watches the programme as well. I also met these lovely ladies, Lorna and Thelma, pair of babes. Ladies, I hope I got your names right. It was a great encounter. And here are a few selfies of your mums that we didn't have time for last Sunday on Mother's Day. Diane and her daughter, Gabby. Raymond and his mum, Annette. And some bunnies. That's right, real-life Easter bunnies, big fans of GB News. They go hopping mad every time I'm on. So do send in your selfies. It's Selfie Sunday every Sunday. I just want to see you, I want to get to know you, and let's grow this army of GB News viewers. You can do the show in the background if you like, or a lovely picture simply of your gorgeous face. You can even throw in a pet if you like, whatever works. mark@gbnews.uk. So it's very cold outside, it's Monday tomorrow. Let's have some fun tonight, shall we? It is Sunday after all, so fire up the kettle and tear open the digestive biscuits. I put butter on mine. Is that wrong? Let's get to work. An eco-protester has used adhesive to attach himself to a microphone at the radio station LBC. It's the first time anyone's ever been glued to LBC. Here's the clip.
You have a massive platform. You have a massive platform, right? Oh, here we go. You have a massive platform, a microphone. that you can use to tell people about the situation we're in, and you are not using it, right?
So for those of you listening,
not using it.
For those of you listening on the radio,
someone like me, an ordinary person who is fighting for their future, is having to take the microphone in a situation like this and having to tell your viewers the situation we are in, because people like you do not.
So for those
people like you are giving as much as a death sentence to your viewers as our government is, as the fossil fuel companies are.
So, and that goes for all those people. By the way, for those of you listening, wondering what the banging on the microphone was, Mr. McGovern has apparently, I think, is it glue? You seem to have glued yourself to the microphone, so that's fantastic.
Many thanks to the brilliant and very professional Tom Swarbrick and LBC for that clip. This young man, all of 22 years of age, is from a campaign group called Just Stop Oil. That's right, they're called Just Stop Oil. But by the looks of this waster, it seems he also just stopped washing, just stopped brushing his hair, and just stopped having a proper job. Not too many of these eco-protesters are high flyers, are they? With seemingly unlimited amounts of time with which to disrupt the lives of people who do have jobs and contribute to this country and its economy. Strange that these dangerous extremists don't seem to care about the economy, even though I will hazard a guess that they still want a national health service, policing, schools, welfare, and bin collections for all of their recycled goodies. You know, those cans of craft beer at £3 a pop, and all of the packaging for their lentil burgers and vegan bacon. Now, I am concerned about the environment. I want to get carbon down, and who doesn't want cheap, reliable, renewable energy? The green technology sector is a huge growth area for the UK. We are world leaders at it, and it could be a real money spinner for Britain, providing huge numbers of high-quality jobs and generating not just energy independence, but a significant national income too. But energy is a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. In the end, I suspect we need a mix, with short to medium-term use of fossil fuels, particularly clean fossil fuels like fracking, if that can be made to work, plus the oil, gas and coal reserves that lie beneath our feet. And we invest now to achieve nuclear and green renewables over the medium to long term. But whatever we do, it's got to be a national conversation. The last time I checked, we live in a representative democracy, although I'll be honest, it hasn't felt like that recently. And you, the public, must be consulted about the direction of travel, because it will affect the cost to you of heating your homes and fueling your cars. Plus, there is a wider duty of care owed to the whole country to pursue policies which have a vision, yes, but which are affordable, practical, reliable, and firmly in the national interest. Bankrupting an already overstretched country with the national debt now almost the size of the economy itself is far from in the national interest. And we have a long tradition of debate and political discourse in this country. And every 4 or 5 years, we have a big public vote. We have an election. I don't think in 2019 anyone voted Boris to get net zero, and I'm certainly not sure they voted for a 20 grand bill for an eco boiler or 30 or 35 grand for an electric car. It's already an outrage that the British public haven't been consulted about the expensive green agenda, even if it is the right thing to do, which it might be. What's worse is the arrogance of eco-zealots like this young man on LBC, who is stuck there now and will be probably presenting the overnight show. There are worse gigs. This 22-year-old, who hasn't even had his first shave yet and has never seen a bath, thinks he can dictate to the government and therefore the British people by breaking the law in order to get his way and pursue his ideology. There is a certain religious fervour about some members of the green lobby that we've somehow got to get all of our energy from windmills as of tomorrow morning and segue to a plant-based diet, which, let's be clear, is a hellish dystopia of protest junk vegan food that will further enrich the unscrupulous food industry and further enfeeble human health. No wonder so many of these eco-protesters don't have a job. With the vegan diet, they've scarcely got the energy to protest or drink a soya latte. And there's a debate to be had about global warming and carbon emissions. For me, it is a concern, and I think we should address it. We have a duty to hand the planet to the next generation in as good a condition as we found it, if not better. Others take the view that climate change has been exaggerated, that it's not a threat, or the planet has always had climate change. That's what's argued. Personally, my instinct is always to challenge orthodoxies. Doing so has good historical precedent. But who knows? I'm no expert. But as we learned during COVID, one diagnosis of a problem and one solution, i.e. lockdowns, is not a healthy or constructive form of public policy. So we've got to hear all voices when it comes to our climate challenges and work constructively with the British people through democratic means to preserve the precious planet that we have and to invest in its long-term future. But this won't be done by lying down on motorways, stopping ambulances taking patients to hospital, or stopping mums and dads from getting the kids to school, and stopping those who do contribute to the economy and to our society from going about their business and getting to work. All of these eco-zealots are undemocratic bullies who refuse to engage in a discussion, and they don't care about democracy or the consent of you, the British people. For these eco-zealots, it's an ideology, a religion. When I watched that man glue his hand to the microphone at LBC, I just thought, what an absolute cult. And who knows, these campaigners might be right about everything. But let them win the arguments through the media, through public discourse, and through the ballot box. Britain can always do better, and I want to go green, baby. Who doesn't want cleaner air and a long-term source of energy that allows us to starve the monster Putin of the money with which to pay for his war machine? If solar panels, windmills and a flurry of nuclear power stations starve dictators like Putin of his resources, happy days. But as it stands, Britain is responsible for 1% of global carbon emissions. So I suggest the next time this young man wants to lie down on the motorway or glue his hands to a microphone, perhaps he should go to mega-polluting China and try that trick at a radio station in Beijing or Shanghai. Then he'd really come unstuck. These eco-zealots are not campaigners, they are terrorists, undermining our democratic values to force their economically ruinous, scientifically debatable ideology on hard-working Brits. Margaret Thatcher famously once said, "You can't negotiate with terrorists." How right she was. In fact, what you do with them is you expose them to the long arm of the law. They can glue themselves to a jail cell. How about that? As the energy crisis has demonstrated, with people's bills going up by upwards of 50%, with worse to come this winter, it's now clear that walking away from existing fossil fuels that we have at our fingertips has made the West more dependent on the likes of Putin for his oil and gas. And it's exposed ordinary people, punch-drunk from 2 years of financial hell, to unprecedented fuel bills and a cost of living crisis in which people are choosing between whether to eat or heat. We've learnt a hard lesson, folks. Go woke, no smoke. Anyway, I do hope that you'll stick around for the rest of the show. I'm in a sticky situation. Oh, there you go. I'm free. Panel, rescue me. I'm delighted to say reacting to the big stories of the day will be the rather sticky Alice Grant, the adhesive-laden Tommy Sandu, and the positively magnetic Aisling Horgan-Wallace. Great to have all three of you with me. Aisling, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Great to be here. By the way, it is hand sanitizer, so don't try that one at home, folks. Aisling, what was your reaction when you saw that footage of an eco-campaigner gluing his hands to a microphone on a national radio station?
I thought, what a bleep, if I'm honest. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because in his mind and in his heart, he thinks he's doing the right thing for the future. So it's a difficult one. I can understand from his perspective that he thinks he's doing the right thing for the planet, but to us, he just looks like a teapot.
Listen, you've been very, very polite with your language so far. This is Mark Dolan tonight. It won't last, Ashley. But you'll never be cancelled on my watch. I mean, we had a discussion about it with the team before we came on air, and actually one of my colleagues made the point that actually, although we might condemn this behaviour, we're now talking about the climate.
Well, this is my point, you see. If everyone went away and was quiet and didn't stick their hands to microphones, would we be even talking about it, or would we be caught up in the Will Smith drama or another drama that is not as important? So it keeps us talking about something that's really important.
Well, look, Tommy Sandu, you are an extremely experienced broadcaster. How would you feel if you were interviewing someone and they glued their hands to your microphone?
No, well annoyed. But firstly, that sounded like a euphemism.
It did sound obscene. Apologies, it's a family show.
That's exactly what you meant, Mark Dolan. You know it. I would expect them to glue both hands to it. OK, so here's what I think. It's a criminal act, Mark. This is the problem. And, you know, this has been the week of people taking the law into their own hands, with Will Smith going up and because he's annoyed and slapping someone, with this guy being annoyed and gluing his hands to a microphone that doesn't belong to him.
Not the same, though.
Yeah, I'm saying people have their own reasons. They've got annoyed for their own reasons, and they're taking the law into their hands. It's not allowed. You can't do this. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Sometimes I'm in a rush, but I don't speed. Sometimes I get angry, but I contain it, or I go and have a bit of chocolate, and it makes me feel a bit better. So you've got to do other things. And this is. Yeah, you're right. Ashleen's right. We've got everyone talking about it, but there's another way. And what I want to know is, where's that guy now? And at what point did he start regretting it? At what point did he go, maybe I shouldn't have done this? Because now, his skin's going to peel off. It's going to be sore for a week. There's going to be a whole world of regret.
It looks really unfortunate, just when you look at it.
These people, they don't have any arguments. They don't have any actual points for discourse and deliberation and debate. So they have to resort to these silly PR tactics and these stupid little attention grabs to try to get people talking about them. But in reality, they have actually no idea what these agendas actually mean for the British people and how impoverishing they would be for the vulnerable people out there who are already very much.
But there should be repercussions on him now.
Yeah,
something should be done now. He shouldn't be like, we just poured some warm water on it, a bit of soap and water, and off he went home in his taxi, probably paid for by LBC as well. That shouldn't be the way. They should be like, well, now you've got to replace the mic, mate.
Well, Alice Grant, you are a principled young person. Some would argue the planet's on fire and we've got to do something. This guy's a hero. He is a modern-day suffragette.
Well, that's the thing. The truth is that the net zero agenda is going to cost us £1.4 trillion. 70% of our existing GDP. National debt has already spiraled out of control. The real consequences of net zero would be atrocious for the ordinary person. So as much
now
as
you put it like that.
That's the thing. Well, these are the facts, and they don't want to face up to these like extremists, and they are using almost like terrorist tactics. We've seen this before with Extinction Rebellion blocking up roads in London, atrocious scenes, people not being able to go to hospital and stuff, and it's very selfish. It's very out of touch. It's very like cosmopolitan. Like, yeah, of course we care for the planet, but honestly.
I just feel like they think that they're doing the right thing. I don't think that they're necessarily.
I don't know how can you think you're doing the right thing when you're like, lying on the road,
because they're bringing it to our attention, and like they think that we all just don't care and that we're not paying attention to what is going on the planet, and that's their way. I know they're annoying, especially when they're in front of ambulances and people trying to take their kids to school and stuff like that.
We're literally entering into a fuel crisis here. Like, fuel poverty is a real thing that's going to affect British families, and not just, in London, but especially across the whole of the UK.
And also, Ashley, there can be sympathy for the eco cause. As I said in my Big Opinion monologue, my mind is open. I really think that we have to look carefully at the science around global warming. And I certainly haven't taken a strong view either way at the moment, which is why I've suggested a balanced approach where we use some fossil fuels in the short term whilst we get that reliability from nuclear and renewables. But this isn't, is it, Ashleen? This is not how we do business in this country. We've got a democracy and you express yourself through the ballot box.
But
there are lots of causes.
Done that way.
Well, there are lots of causes you could glue your hands to a microphone for, don't you think, Ashleen? I mean, you could glue your hands to a microphone for child poverty,
or things that matter, like human slavery.
But this
that's a major the global problem. Human trafficking of
Which
children.
policy is so important that you get to break the law for it, Ashleen?
Oh, now you've put me on the spot. I'm not saying that you should break the law. I just think that I like to think from their perspective and why they're doing it, and I just don't think that they're doing it from a dark place. They're doing it from a place of wanting to make the planet a better place for the next generation.
Tommy, let's get back to those hands on your big microphone. The bottom line, Tommy, is that this is going to escalate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great networks like LBC will be concerned about the other sorts of characters that could do a stunt in a radio studio, and that's a big concern, I would have thought.
Well, look, and exactly, and I think ultimately, Mark, people want to be heard, OK? If a voice feels oppressed, then people will go to extremes to have their voice heard. Like, kind of what Aislinn's saying is these guys feel that the planet is at this absolute crux time in its kind of life cycle, and if we don't do something absolutely immediately, we're all gonna explode, or the whole planet's gonna go.
I thought we had 12 years left.
And yeah, exactly. But that might be the case.
Here we are.
Ultimately, people deserve a platform, and what I would like to know is that there are steps actually being taken. You know, all these kind of extreme kind of green people, in my opinion, need to know that there are actually things being done by the country, by the government, to answer their concerns. But equally, you can't go about your business like that. There are, honestly, Mark, and I mean it genuinely, there are many things that I feel are really unjust in the world, many areas, but there's a process, and there's a way to make your point, and that's what intelligent, democratic, well-balanced societies do. And you can't do that. And actually, you're right, how far are some people going to go? Today, he's glued himself to a mic. You take someone who feels that the desperation is a little bit more serious than that. How far are they going to go in the studio? What might they do?
I think what Mark said was really true, which is that why aren't they protesting in China or doing anything about China? Why is it the UK, which does account for negligible global emissions, yet China's getting away with building coal power plants and firing on with their industrial revolution, and yet here we have to be impoverished with the green agenda, but not.
Well, it's a hot debate. Many will be supportive of the actions of this young man. Are you one such person? Let me know if you support this rather drastic action of gluing your hands to a microphone in a radio studio. If you back what he's done, do let me know why. Mark at gbnews.uk. Also, we want your Sunday selfies. Send in pictures. I don't want to see pictures of Tommy Sandu's microphone. That's X-rated material. But why don't you send me a picture of your good self? You can be watching the show. You can just be hanging out. Let's get to know each other better, because every Sunday is Selfie Sunday. After this is Britain Broke. I'm going to get myself unstuck. See you soon.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
I'll get to your emails shortly. We've also got some selfies coming in. Have we got some ready, Zoe? If not, I'll do a call out. OK, we'll do get them in. Actually, they're flooding in as we speak, so we'll get those selfies for the next break. Oh, we've got some. I'm so excited. If you want to send them in, mark@gbnews.uk. Also, a big reaction to my Big Opinion monologue. Carl in our digital team is actually editing down the Big Opinion, which you can now rewatch on GB News on Twitter, so take a look at that. But how about this from Alan Jennings, who says, "Dear Mark, I hope Starmer doesn't use this glue trick to get his own way and his own show on LBC." Nicely put. How about this? John simply describes these characters as eco bell ends. Not pulling your punches. How about this? Mark says, "Dear Mark, these protesters need to feel real violence against them instead of the fairy police standing over them eating donuts. The police need to step aside and let violent gangs take care of them once and for all. I, for one, will be happy to assist." Well, Mark, listen. I don't agree with you. I think violence is never the answer. I think the cops should do their job. If you've broken the law, you should be apprehended and, if necessary, chucked in jail. But I don't think it doesn't have to get to fisticuffs. However, Marky, if that's your view, you're entitled to have it. This show's all about opinions. No one gets cancelled on my watch. And I'm delighted to say that Alistair and Zoe have fired up some selfies for me. I haven't got the names at the moment, it doesn't matter. Let's just have a look at who you are. So here is one of our lovely viewers with a fabulous funky hairdo. That's fantastic. Watching the show live, because you can see that, it's my red tie. Thank you for watching. And how about our next wonderful viewer? Oh my God, I've got a pussy watching me. I feel so honoured. What a gorgeous moggy that one is. Nearly as gorgeous as my cat, Harry. OK, and one more to go. What a fine, handsome man. Look at that. And I get the thumbs up. I'm very honoured. Listen, thank you for sending that in. Apologies. We're just getting the names together as we speak, but we were desperate to get some pictures on camera so I can share your gorgeous faces and your furry tails with the great British public. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day from multiple points of view. Tonight, with the British economy facing a national debt in excess of £2 trillion, with the borrowing that is now actually costing us, I think, interest debt alone is 80 billion a year. Inflation running at over 6%, and with the British people in the grip of an unprecedented cost of living crisis, here's today's big question. Is Britain broke? With Vladimir Putin pursuing an expensive and devastating war in Ukraine, pumping up energy prices, what is the economic outlook for Britain? Are the fundamental basis of the British economy such that we will navigate our way out of this crisis, or are we in serious trouble? Should the Chancellor Rishi Sunak borrow even more money to help hard-up Brits? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome economist, chartered financial planner and presenter of the Booms and Busts podcast, Jonathan Davis, and Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, Vicky Price. Vicky Price, is Britain broke?
No. Britain can borrow quite easily, as it's shown it was able to do throughout the whole COVID period. We borrowed £300 billion in 1 year. We're borrowing 150 nearly billion pounds over the year that is just finishing, and we'll be borrowing more in the years to come. This suggests to me that the UK can easily overcome some of the problems it has faced, but of course at a cost, as you rightly said. We have to pay interest on the debt. They're not huge amounts, actually. We shouldn't exaggerate how that 85 billion, yes, this is accrued interest, if you like, that we're going to be having to be paying over a period of time. And it does raise, indeed, the overall debt temporarily, but it's all quite manageable for the time being. But what is the problem is that individuals and households are in real trouble right now because their standard of living is declining. Inflation is as high as we have not seen, in fact, in decades, and is likely to possibly reach double-digit figures by maybe sort of May or June of this year, and maybe stay at high levels for some time. And that is a problem, of course, for most people because their wages are not keeping up with it. So that's the real issue, that we're having a population which is going to feel a real squeeze in the year ahead, and that squeeze may last for quite some time.
Well, all I care about, Vicky, is my viewers, many of you whom are struggling at the moment, energy bills going up by 50% or more, inflation is impacting some of the most basic goods. Should the Chancellor borrow more money to help out cash-strapped Brits?
Probably yes. What's happening right now, of course, is that the government is reducing the amount of money that they have to borrow each year, as I suggested. So the idea was that we were going to be borrowing a lot less next year and a lot less the year after, and reducing the deficit. But the way that this has been achieved is by collecting more taxes. So taxes have gone up for most people, not just because of the national insurance contributions that we know are going up, of course, this financial year, the one for 22-23, but also, of course, we've seen a freezing of the tax allowances. Tax allowances are not going up over the next 4 years, which means that loads of people are coming into the higher tax brackets or even starting to pay tax for the first time. Then we have a lot of taxes on businesses. Corporation tax is going up to 23%, 25%, apologies. And also, at the same time, the employers have to pay a lot more in terms of national insurance too. And the benefit has been given to individuals just now in the spring statement, which is raising the national insurance contribution allowance, so you don't start paying it until a bit later than before. It does not apply to businesses. So businesses have not been helped either with the energy bills or on the tax front. And that's a real issue. Are they going to be able to survive? Are they going to be able to pass some of these very high costs to consumers? The likelihood is they're going to find it difficult to do so. So we've seen already that business confidence is declining. We just had the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, data for the first quarter of 2022 showing a fall in confidence. And we're also seeing that evidence coming through retail sales and also the manufacturing sector, where again the data is suggesting that the pace of recovery that we have seen is now declining and declining quite substantially. So there are worries in terms of moving ahead. And I think, yes, to answer your question, again, the Chancellor needs to do more, probably borrow more and redirect perhaps some of the money to people who really need it most.
Briefly, before I come to Jonathan Davis, is that not a race to the bottom? Is that not economic quicksand where we print more money, we get more inflation? Isn't this a trap?
There is a problem with inflation, and you've got a point there that we need to watch that, and that's why interest rates are going up. But of course, interest rates are already affecting both businesses and individuals. We were quite used to very low interest rates, and that was very helpful in getting us out of the pandemic problem that we've had, and we had to have that. But at the same time, if you look at the fact that we are in a crisis and that loads of other countries, if you look across Europe, are subsidizing electricity bills a lot more than we are. They are taxing energy companies and redistributing that money. They are reducing taxes rather than increasing them right now because they perceive this to be a temporary problem. We'll get out of it, but we can only really get out of it if we also act in the right way to support the economy during it.
Jonathan Davis, is Britain broke?
Well, I was absolutely fascinated that the first sentence by Mrs. Price there was, we can borrow more and not be broke. Well, you know, I don't know what...
What a terrible moment to lose. Jonathan, hold fire, because you just pixelated for a moment and we're hanging on your every word. Could you repeat your answer? You wanted to take issue with what Vicky Price had to say about borrowing.
The first sentence was, we can borrow and not be impoverished. Well, you know, where I come from, if your government is already £2.6 thousand billion in debt, any household that's in debt, if you borrow more, how does that make you more prosperous? No, it makes you more in debt. It's a nonsense that these economists keep coming out with. Don't worry about borrowing more and more, because apparently that can improve your financial situation. Well, apart from anything, it's totally illogical. Now, also, everyone's always looking for a simple, easy solution to being broke or not. Of course we're broke. The question is, how long can they keep on spinning the plates? Well, clearly, if you look back to the 1990s, the level of debt in society has been rising exponentially. So they've been spinning the plates for 25 years, shall we say. Well, that's all fine and well, while borrowing rates have been falling for 40, 50 years. Well, I'm not saying that borrowing rates are particularly going to rise for the next 25 years, but they're certainly not going to fall any longer, because until recently, they were at all-time lows. So, of course, it's getting more expensive for the government to service debt, for companies, and indeed for households to service debt. And look where we are now. As you said earlier, Mark, as everyone knows, my goodness, home energy costs are going up 50% a year. Go to the gas station and fill up your tank. You're looking at $1.75 a litre, whereas 2 years ago, you were looking at £1 a litre. 75% increase. Everyone knows also the phrase, it's about eating or heating. Why on earth, in the 21st century, with our technology and with our brains, why on earth are people in this country having to decide about eating or heating? I'll tell you why. It's because the politicians for the last 25 years have gone through a process of impoverishing us, and now the chickens are coming home to roost. Do not say, as you did earlier, that Vladimir Putin is the reason why we've got rising inflation. No, look at the price of oil. It was $20 a barrel in April 2020. 2 years ago, it went up to $130. By the way, it's come down $30 since Russia's been in Ukraine, and it's going down. So, yes, we are broke in the sense that the chickens are coming home to roost. It's getting more and more difficult to retain a standard of living for 90+% of the population. And it's not going to get any better while the government, while the politicians continue doing what they're doing.
Vicky Price, I know you need to rush off very shortly. Great to have you on the show. What's your reaction to what Jonathan had to say, that actually further borrowing would be irresponsible, even if it is currently cheap?
I have to say I have no idea whether you can hear me properly, because I wasn't able to hear everything well. So if you can hear me, that's really good. But of course, we have to watch how much we borrow. There is no doubt about that the Chancellor has been trying to get back to some normality. You can do that when things are normal. But right now, we're not in a normal environment at all, because we have the crisis in the Ukraine and Russia. We have threats of being cut off from gas and oil coming from Russia that so many countries in Europe depend on. We have serious issues about businesses being able to get the supplies that they need to continue to operate. We have serious problems with food imports as well, and the price of food, many foodstuffs have gone up very significantly. So we are in a position where we have to act. So sitting back and saying that actually what's paramount is to get back to a situation where we borrow less every year. We're not going to reduce the stock of debt. The stock of debt is going to carry on going up. We're going to be borrowing more every year, even under the best circumstances. But right now, if we look across Europe, if you look at the US, countries are borrowing more. They have accepted that that's what they need to do right now. And they are quite concerned that if they don't do that, first of all, there would be a lot of social unrest, of course. And second, the economies will do so much worse that getting out of that problem afterwards will be even harder. So that's why one has to intervene now,
last word.
a little bit more than perhaps the Chancellor had anticipated.
Thank you, Vicky. If you have to run, do run. It's been great to have you back on the programme again. Jonathan Davis, last word.
You know, the logic of to continue doing what we're doing, because if we don't, then there's going to be blood on the streets. Well, there's going to be blood on the streets, I'm afraid to say, because there's going to be social unrest, because there's going to be people who can't eat, people who can't heat their homes. If that doesn't create social unrest, I don't know what will. And this idea that the Chancellor's trying to do something, well, I'm sorry. These politicians have been doing it to us for the last 25 years, and there is no difference whether they're blue or red or yellow. There is no difference in their policies, in the minutiae perhaps, but their broad brush is exactly the same. And the argument, just because every government says this is what we got to do, therefore we have to do it. Well, I remember in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher said, no, we've got to do it differently. And by the time we got to 1990, the US economy and the UK economy were the strongest on the planet. UK economy was a beacon of light, of strength. Everyone copied then what we had done in the 1980s. So, you know, it's a straw man argument to say everyone says it, therefore we've got to do it. Absolute nonsense. What we need to do is cut spending, slash spending, the bureaucracy, the quangos, the quasi-public sector and public sector organisations, which are funded not by my taxes, but by increased borrowing, basically to buy votes to keep the thing going so that these guys can stay in government and have a laugh at the rest of us, while Granny can't even heat her home.
My deep thanks to Jonathan Davis, who is the presenter of the Booms and Bust podcast. That's right, Booms and Busts, plural, podcast. He's also an economist and chartered financial planner. And my also sincere thanks go to the Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, Vicky Price. Thanks to both of you. What a fascinating conversation. What do you think? Is Britain broke? Mark at gbnews.uk. More of your selfies next. It is Selfie Sunday. And the amazing author of The Chimp Paradox, Professor Steve Peters, is live in the studio. He sold, I think, something like 10 million copies of this book. Find out why at 10 o'clock. Plus, we've got my alternative news headlines and my amazing panel who are back next to talk about a lot of burning issues of the day. See you shortly.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
You are watching Mark Dolan Tonight. Did you enjoy that little shot of our set behind the scenes? Here we are, Mark Dolan Tonight, and we've got a really, really busy hour and 10 to come. Let's take a look at some more selfies which are coming in. We've got our first viewer that's watching the show tonight. Every Sunday we get a picture of anybody that's joining us because I want to get to know you better. Let's take a look. Oh, isn't she lovely? She looks surprised. She looks like she's glued her hands to a radio microphone. And how about this? I think this is Frost the cat, who's right in front of my tie, which is probably a good thing. What another lovely cat. We've got so many cats watching. We've got a very feline audience tonight. Feline the love. Brilliant stuff. Any more for any more? We'll get to more of your selfies very shortly. Mark at gbnews.uk. Do put your names in with them, by the way, so we can give you a shout out as well. More of those to come. Let's have a quick look at those emails because that's my priority for this show. How about this? Stephen on climate change. Hi, Mark. Love your show. These so-called eco-warriors are a load of tossers. They don't realise that our carbon emissions make little difference on a global scale. If they went to India and China and protested, I would admire them. They are obviously people who are incapable of putting forward a credible argument and so resort to terror tactics. They're so ignorant that they don't realise that the glue they use is a byproduct of oil, as is some of the clothing that they wear and the combs that he should be using in his hair. How do they get to their destination to carry out their tactics? Oil. Yes, oil, you dim-witted morons. You're unnecessarily contributing to climate change. Stop it. There you go. Steve, not pulling his punches. Is Britain broke is a question I've been asking you. And let's have a look at some of your emails on that one. Just waiting for this to load up. It is a burning issue. The cost of living crisis is one that's not going to go away, and it's something that I'm going to be personally addressing in a very detailed way in the weeks and months to come. Let's get to our news agenda, though, with my brilliant panel. And let's talk about Brooklyn Beckham, the son of David Beckham, of course, who has signed a prenuptial agreement with his fiancée, Nicola Peltz. With the Beckhams worth over £300 million, and with the couple planning a £3 million wedding ceremony, 3 million quid, it's sure to be one hell of a prenup. But the question is, are these agreements that you make before you get married unromantic? What do you think, Alice?
Yeah, that's a funny question.
Yes.
OK, well, let me give you a hypothetical, OK? I don't know if you're independently wealthy yet. No. But I've got no doubt, given your colossal talents.
Student.
Well, there you go. So you're minus.
Yeah,
so you'd have to have a prenup to share the debts.
Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't it?
You know, I'm not an expert at these things.
But OK, let's give you a hypothetical. OK, given your colossal broadcasting talents, you will at some point be a multi-millionaire. OK, so let's say you're 30 and you're worth
Catholic. The chances are slim.
10 maybe £10 million you got in the bag. You fall in love with someone. Do they have a right to half your fortune if it doesn't work out?
I mean, I think well, it's difficult. Well, as I said, it comes back to my faith. I only marry once, so divorce isn't something even on the agenda. So
with that in mind, your faith and your religion would actually preclude a prenup.
Yeah, I guess.
You wouldn't need it because you're making a commitment,
yes, for life.
I guess, under the eyes of God, to stay with this person.
Yes, sacrament of marriage. So that's it.
You realise you're Catholic.
Yeah.
You realise that if you are worth millions of pounds, there'll be lots of blokes pretending to be very religious, just to win your heart.
I can tell a good pious.
Yeah, you can tell.
I can see the virtues.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely right. Tommy, what do you think? I mean, do you think it's unromantic, these little documents before getting married?
Well, two things. Firstly here, I thought for a prenup, you have to be worth something. I don't think these two are. It's their mum and dad. So
yeah.
if they kind kind of marrying for a prenup to prevent them from getting their hands on the money of David and Victoria Beckham, who are quite fit and in shape. It's going to be decades before they pop their clogs.
Yes.
So Nicola won't get any money on that. But I should point out, Nicola Peltz's family are worth 3 times the Beckhams.
They make the Beckhams look poor.
Right. They're worth like 1.3, 1.4 billion pounds, right? So the money's probably going to go the other way. But these two aren't actually worth that much. She's been in a couple of kind of series or films and things like that, but low-level kind of stuff, nothing mega.
Yeah.
There was a Marvel series as well, but I was saying it's nothing huge. And he's got like a Levi's modelling campaign. He makes stuff. He makes an amazing beef Wellington on his Instagram. So that was quite. But I don't know how much.
Is that right? Oh, I thought he was like making really rubbish sandwiches or something.
He did on that show. We covered it here. But his beef Wellington looked all right. I looked at that today.
Right.
Does his pasta from scratch? But I don't think that's worthy of a prenup. But you could argue, Mark, it's actually very romantic, because what they're saying is, take the money out. Hey, babe, it's just about me and you. Money isn't a factor. This is what love should be about. Nothing to do with the cash.
Well, Aisling, you must have made a few bob on reality TV.
Yeah.
What disgraceful bounder deserves any of your money?
No one deserves my money. I was homeless. I slept on a park bench. I worked hard for everything that I've got. Really worked hard. No, you ain't get my money, honey. No. Sign that piece of paper.
Yeah. So you do a brutal document. But what if you were to meet somebody even richer than you?
Been there, done that.
Would you accept, if a guy, let's say you fell in love with a billionaire, would you accept, if he handed you a prenup, would you sign it?
Absolutely, because I am self-made and I make my own money and I don't need to feed off of somebody else.
What figure would be on that prenup, though? What would you be looking for?
I mean...
You want a bit, don't you?
Well, yeah, I'd say like a cool sort of 10 mil would be all right.
10 mil, just to see you by.
Standards, you know, the way I live my life and stuff, it just have to be.
Yeah, to pay for those outfits when you're on GBNews.
Exactly that.
Absolutely. The condo in the south of France.
All of that, darling. Yeah, he's got to think forward with me.
The New York apartment overlooking Central Park.
I actually agree with prenups. I think, yeah. And especially in today's society, everything's so throwaway. So we throw away our marriages, we throw away...
Doesn't it doom the relationship to failure if you sign a prenup?
No.
Isn't it proof that you've not made the commitment that Alice is talking about?
I mean, that's nice that Alice still thinks that can happen, but I'm a strong believer in...
It does for Catholics, and it can. It's just that our society has chosen to reject the conceptualisation of marriage that otherwise we've had in our nation for hundreds of years. This is recent, the kind of quick divorces,
so therefore we need to bear that in mind.
Broken families, destroying the unit of the family is the most basic, fundamental part of our society. Like, this is all recent, you know.
Well, you've done us a big favour on this, because it takes us to the next part of our news agenda, because staying on the subject of marriage, the matter of divorce is to become a whole lot simpler with the introduction of no-fault divorces. That's right, you've got divorces now where you don't have to go through that rigmarole of saying unreasonable behaviour, or he was smelly, or he spent too much time at TK Maxx. By the way, I've just described myself. Snores at night. What do we think about whether divorce, Tommy, is too easy now?
Well, isn't this a sign of the times now? Isn't everything just quick fix? You can, you know,
Did you do that just to show off that you can click your fingers?
Pow! To show they're not glued to any microphone. Look, I'm leaving your microphone alone. I'm not gluing my hand to my own chest where your microphone is. No, it's this kind of quick fix nature. So you can kind of get divorced very quickly now. I think it's from April the 6th, isn't it? So in a couple of days' time, that's it. No reason needed, and you can hop in and hop out of marriage. Now listen, I'm a good Indian boy, and marriage means something. A bit like what Alice is saying here as well. It stands for something, and actually, I think the divorce rate in India is like 1%. Something like that, you know, 90% arranged marriages. I'm not saying they're all happy, but they stick with it. Because I'm married, I've been married 12 years, and I've always said, it's like a business. I realised quite early on that in the sense that, I know, but in the way that you've got to work at it. You don't just open your shop doors and go, right, business is going to be flying. You don't
open her shop doors?
I
don't need to know about the wedding night.
Yeah, you don't pull up the shutters on the missus and then no.
Slam open her shop doors. She glues her hands to your big microphone. I mean, it's 5 to 10, mate.
I mean,
There's kids watching.
This is Indian romance. This is how the Bollywood.
Anyway, yeah, you slammed her doors open. What happens next?
Meaning you've got to work at it, Mark. You've got to bring in different marketing strategies.
No, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's like this permissive society now where you can give up your mobile phone contract. Right. Marriage should not be like that. It's not a mobile phone.
Right, you can't hit unsubscribe. And so,
yeah.
And you know what? Your other half is going to annoy you. I'm sure my wife has thought about killing me. I'm pretty sure she's thought about leaving me. You know, they're like, is this the right guy for me? But you work through it and you get over it. And I think that's what we all need to kind of look into now. Not this quick fix and leave.
Yeah, Aisling, go in a couple of seconds, but what do you think about divorce? Too easy?
I mean, I think it should be easy for certain people in certain situations. I think it's a good thing that this has been brought forward. Yes, people do throw away their marriage too easily, but for some people it's imperative that they can get out of a dangerous
True. Yeah. But what about the children? You see, I don't think people are taking into account the way divorce affects children in a family, and I've seen many of my friends also really deeply affected by their parents' divorce.
Another really important factor.
Really affect.
And of course, they didn't choose for that divorce to happen necessarily, did they? And yet they are stakeholders. Really good point. I think you'll agree we're travelling business class with my panel. They return in the next hour, as does the legendary psychotherapist Steve Peters, who helped Steven Gerrard and many athletes achieve great things. Find out why after this.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss, and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Okay. Well, look, this show aims to inform you and spark a conversation about the day's big stories. Occasionally, we like to entertain you, at least we try. But how about we change your life? I'm not overstating this, because the truly inspiring Professor Steve Peters is with me in the studio. He originally wrote this book. It's The Chimp Paradox. This is my very well-thumbed copy from home. Look, I've even got post-it notes in there for the important bits. Well, his latest book is out now. It's called A Path Through the Jungle. It very much distills what's in the Chimp Paradox. Steve Peters is a man who has inspired some of our greatest sporting heroes to even greater success. Steven Gerrard, the Liverpool football team, Victoria Pendleton, Bradley Wiggins, Ronnie O'Sullivan, you name it, Chris Hoy. So how does he do it? How does he help people to achieve their potential and to get rid of those bad habits? Well, find out in 2 minutes because he's here in the studio. But first up, here are the headlines with Miranda Shunker.
Thank you. Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has announced the UK is stepping up sanctions and military support for Ukraine, pledging to do everything in his power to starve Putin's war machine. His words follow that of Ukraine's foreign minister, who's accused Russia of a deliberate massacre in the town of Bucha outside Kiev. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says war crimes in Bucha and other occupied cities are to be examined by the UN Security Council on Tuesday. He says everyone responsible for war crimes will be found and punished.
I want every mother of every Russian soldier to see the bodies of dead people in Bucha, Irpin and Gostomel. How was it possible to rape women and kill them in front of their children, making fun of their bodies even after they died? Why did they crush people's bodies with tanks? What did the Ukrainian city of Bucha do to Russia? How did all of this become possible?
Well, former world heavyweight boxing champion Vladimir Klitschko was on the ground in Bucha following the attack.
This is not special operation. This is not military objects. This is civilians. They've been shot in the head with the tight hands behind their back. This is genocide of the Ukrainian population. And that's exactly what Russian regime, Putin's regime, Russian army is doing, killing the civilians with the tight hands behind their back and with a shot in their heads.
Well, meanwhile, evacuations from Mariopol and Luhansk have taken place today. That's according to Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister. Irina Vereshchuk said over 2,500 people from the conflict zones have now left. She added Ukrainian officials were in talks with Russia to allow Red Cross buses to enter Mariupol to help more people. Earlier, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss tweeted that Russia was blocking life-saving humanitarian support from reaching the besieged city. At least 6 people have been killed and 12 others injured after a shooting in Sacramento in California. Police have closed off several streets while they investigate and are still searching for suspects. Mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, says more must be done to end America's shootings.
This senseless epidemic of gun violence must be addressed. How many unending tragedies does it take before we begin to cure the sickness in this country?
And more than 200 people have been arrested as climate change protests have continued for a third day at oil terminals across the UK. Officers say the arrests were for criminal damage, obstructing the highway and public order. Activists from the group Just Stop Oil are demanding the government end new oil and gas projects. Well, on TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Professor Steve Peters live in the studio in 2 minutes' time. His latest book, A Path Through the Jungle, a psychological health and well-being programme to develop robustness and resilience. This is a book that might just change your life, and I'm not exaggerating. It's time now for my alternative news headlines, and let's get to our first story. The Conservative MP David Warburton has had the whip suspended after being caught in a secret tape recording sitting next to lines of cocaine. That's right, lines of cocaine. Insiders say it's been a blow, but he's keeping his powder dry and he feels like a right Charlie. On the plus side, he's spent the last 3 days recording the best album of his career. Yesterday, we brought you the shocking news that selfies with a front-facing camera on your phone make your nose look big and it distorts your face. Well, here on Mark Dolan tonight, we've been conducting our very own live experiment, trying out these different camera positions with me. So here's what I look like with the back-facing camera. Everything's in order there, I guess. And here's the front-facing camera. Oof, thanks, but no thanks. The digital voice assistant Alexa is sexist, according to a new project designed to reduce the gender bias of these electronic devices. I've got to say, my Alexa is so good, I'm thinking of marrying her. She lives in the kitchen, plays my favourite music, listens to my commands, and can be switched off whenever I fancy. If that's not marriage material, I don't know what is. My own wife has a system called Jeffrey. It's strange, I hear a male voice, but I never see a machine. Back to those camera angles. Here's me with the back-facing camera. Pretty decent, I guess. I've brushed my hair. And here I am on the front-facing camera. Oof. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. Vladimir Putin is back in the news. Whilst the evil dictator continues his appalling war in Ukraine, he has faced criticism at home in Russia as a result of his addiction to expensive designer clothing, like this jacket he's wearing. It's a puffer jacket worth £10,000 that he wore at a rally last month. Well, here on Mark Dolan tonight, we've compiled an exclusive list of Vladimir Putin's favourite designer brands. They include, here we go, Donbass and Gabbana, Vladimir's Secret, Ray-Ban Russian Gas, Levi's Alone, that's one for the Ukrainians, Under Armour, Next, Country I'll Invade, Boots on the Ground, Calvin Crimea, and last but not least, Karl Marx and Spencer's. Back to those terrible selfies. Here I am on the back-facing camera. Not too problematic, but here's how I look with the dodgy front-facing option. Yeah, baby! And those are your alternative news headlines. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport and beyond. And tonight, the renowned psychiatrist and best-selling author, Professor Steve Peters, a man who has helped multiple British athletes achieve gold and win trophies. This is a guy who's worked with, among others, Steven Gerrard and the Liverpool football team, Sir Chris Hoy, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Victoria Pendleton, and they've all spoken publicly about how Professor Peters' unique mind management model has helped them to improve their performance and achieve extraordinary success. Here's the first book, and it was called The Chimp Paradox. The quote on the front, Steve Peters is a fresh voice, a new mind, #1 international best-selling author. The inspiring message of The Chimp Paradox has helped millions of ordinary people around the world too, to successfully manage their emotions, achieve their full potential, and break bad habits they thought they'd never get rid of. Well, his latest is out now. It's bigger, longer, heavier, and better. It's called A Path Through the Jungle, a psychological health and well-being program to develop robustness and resilience. Professor Steve Peters, welcome to the show. Welcome to GB News.
Thank you for inviting me.
And developing robustness and resilience feels very timely after a 2-year-long pandemic, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much.
So what inspired the new volume based around your chimp philosophy?
When I wrote the first one, I was trying to get the concept out there that we could explain the neuroscience of our mind and give an understanding of why we have our behaviours or emotions, why we think the way we do, and explain how to manage that so you can actually run your mind the way you want to. So that's why I put out there a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions for people. But fair point, they criticised, came saying, well, you know, it's great, but I can't use it to become really robust and resilient. It's not deep enough. So I did it again in the second book to try and say, right, start from the beginning and let's build you up slowly. So I've done this as a true program. It's got 8 stages. You work through each stage. It's like learning a language. You start to understand yourself. And what I was trying to say to people when they say, give us a talk on robustness, it's not so easy because there are a lot of things that contribute to the mind being robust or resilient. But this is my attempt to help people to get there. So lots of ideas en route that hopefully some people will resonate with.
What I love about the book is it functions as a brilliant self-help guide. I'm not going to lie, full disclosure, I read The Chimp Paradox a few years ago. It changed my life, as it has for so many of your readers, because it helped me and it helps anyone that's read it to manage your emotions, because what one won't necessarily understand until you've read the book is that it's our emotional brain which seems to dominate our fate, and it's important that we have those emotions somehow to heal and in our own control. So can you tell us, if it's possible in a sort of slightly succinct way, how your method works?
I think I've tried to go back in time when I was a young doctor, so you're going back into the 1980s, and you've got patients coming in. I worked in the NHS as a consultant. So in 20 years of there, people you realise come in and they don't have actually mental illness. What they're saying is, I'm in a mess emotionally. I just can't manage my own emotions or thinking. And I was trying to explain, well, we don't need medication for that. We need understanding, insights, and then some emotional skills. So, but what struck me probably in the 90s was recognising when we look at the neuroscience and seeing scanners at work, so we now see the brain acting in real time, and the functional MRI scanners clearly started showing that we have effectively, I've simplified it, two thinking types of brain, one of which is genetically given to us, and we share this brain in the way it thinks with chimpanzees, literally, not the other great apes, such as the gorilla or the orangutan. They don't think the same way. So chimpanzees and humans think with this, what I called initially the red brain, and then nature gave us a blue brain, which works very differently, and this is an independent thinking brain with its own volition. So what you end up with is a clash of interpretation of the world from two separate brains, effectively, and then the centre of the brain was trying to help both of them. So I saw it as almost like an orchestra. Your mind is all playing at once. So that's why in a scanner, all the areas seem to light up, gets complex. But you start to recognise that actually there's a leader here who's tapping the baton and calling on certain instruments. So you had this innate chimp brain, which is working with an emotional basis. And then you had a separate brain, which develops very slowly in life. It doesn't appear really in any shape or form till you're around 3 or 4 years old. And then it starts laying down factual memory and starts working logically. But that takes up to 30 years to develop. So the emotional innate brain, which we don't have control of, thinks and acts, is impulsive. It doesn't see consequence, it has no perspective. So it tends to lead as a merry dance, and it can actually destroy people's lives. And this was the dawning moment for me in the 90s. Could we actually teach people to manage that? So I was doing it with people that came through the doors who were classed as patients, which I saw really just people in difficulties. And I started to be able to teach them these skills. So I was really keen to see, could they teach themselves? And that's when I realised if they actually understood that they're fighting something which they don't need to fight, they need to understand and work with it. Understand, for example, when we get a negative emotion, as I've tried to explain in the book, this is the brain's way of saying, you need to come up with an action or a solution. Don't engage the negative emotion. So what I found the people who were coming in were doing was engaging anxiety or engaging fear or anger, and then seeing that as a problem instead of a message.
And your brilliant book, both books, I mean, you know, your knowledge of the human brain is capacious and will never get close to your knowledge or understanding. But to make it accessible to readers and also as a functional, you know, set of tools with which to be the person you want to be, you have simplified it, and that's why it's an international bestseller. And you've essentially imparted the information that we need to get better, to be who we want to be. And if I'm right, my memory serves me, that you essentially divide the brain into 3 key areas, which would be the memory bank. That's like it's basically a sort of hard drive, and that's just onto which everything that happens to you in your life just gets stored. And that's not an opinion, it's just you get stung by a bee, that hurt, and it goes into your memory drive.
Yeah, and when you do that, it's important to know there's 2 memories get laid down. So you have a memory of the factual information a bee stung me, but you have an emotional memory, which doesn't work with facts, just feelings to say I associate emotion with a certain event now. And so actually we find in people who have illness, for example, that one of those might fail. So they might see a bee and have no understanding why they're getting hysterical. And again, many of us experience that when our brain just deletes the factual memory. And others who see a bee and say, I know this could sting me, and don't seem to have an emotional reaction. So we can see that. And so unfortunately, it's by looking at people who are ill, you work out what the brain is doing. And then apply it to people who are not ill and say, well, hang on, if you start to recognise this, you start to divide your memory up and start seeing which bit's useful, and both of them are useful.
And so what you can do is you can jump into that hard drive, that data bank, and you can rewrite some of the content and take out some of the stuff that's unhelpful or not authentic or just based on an impression or a fear, and then leave the useful stuff in, such as bees sting.
Yeah, and to make it simple, I think what I was trying to say to people, when I try an analysis and say to someone, let's discover what's in your head, because I don't sit there with them lying on a couch. We work together at the table and we explore their mind. And my average guess would be that 6 really faulty beliefs, destructive beliefs are what are inside most people's heads. So I call these the gremlins. They're messing up the computer. And often we don't know what they are. And so when you discover these gremlins, you can remove them. And that can make a difference in the way you perceive yourself, the world, other people. So it can transform people and say, this is so different now. So we have some strong gremlins at times, like having low self-esteem, and it's based on a belief which is really come from a long way back.
And could it be some false fact about yourself that you've sort of thought is true, like I'm not an outdoorsy type, or I can't do public speaking, and the way that we label ourselves in that way? Is that some of the negative stuff that can go onto the hard drive?
Yeah, and you get some quite severe ones, like I'm not as good as everybody else, and you may not even actually know you've got that belief until you start exploring it, and then it starts to dawn on you. That's why you're losing confidence. That's why you don't do public speaking. That's why, or you might have a belief that people are really going to be critical of me. And then you generalise that to everybody. I tried to explain that research indicates 1 in 5 people will love you however you present. You know, they love everybody. And 1 in 5 people are going to criticise you whoever you are. So once you start working with that, you start to recognise you can distinguish between someone who's not going to be very helpful and someone who's always helpful, and a middle group who are going to be fair with you.
So we've covered the hard drive. Then we've got the other chunk, which is the part that you help us to become the dominant part, which is our true selves, our sort of true essence, our personality, and that's the person we want to be. There's one exercise in the book, I think it's, I can't remember how it goes, but it's essentially to write down...
A blank piece of paper.
What was it? Yeah, and what was it? Write down all the things that...
The perfect you. I think what struck me is, if you think about it, and being simplistic, if we were to surgically remove what I'm classifying as the chimp system and surgically remove the centre computer system, that's 2 of the systems, you're left with just yourself, and now you have complete control. So you would choose your emotions. So if anxiety appeared, you'd say, well, that's not very helpful, I won't have that. And that's what would happen in the brain. So when I ask people to write down the perfect you, and it is an epiphany moment, that is you. So if you say to me, the perfect me would be calm, compassionate, great friend, confident, you're describing yourself. And then people say, but that isn't what I'm like, I'm not calm.
So the perfect you tends to be what your true essence could be.
It is you. It is you.
Wow.
It's not me, it is you. What we're saying then, people say, well, I'm not calm. And I'm saying that's because there's interference coming in. So the chimp then interferes, the chimp brain interferes, the computer interferes, and it presents to the world a different picture to you.
Yeah. So we've covered that. That's your true essence, your true personality. We've got the data bank, and then we've got the key one, the star of the show, the Chimp Paradox. This is the cheeky little monkey that lives in your head. It's not necessarily your best friend, but also not necessarily your worst enemy. But this chimp, this random character that you've inherited, needs to be trained. It needs to follow your commands. Is that right?
I wouldn't say commands. I mean, you wouldn't command a friend. I think that the chimp brain is our best friend. The paradox is really that we don't recognise it such. I mean, I describe my chimp brain as being my best friend, but he's inept. You know, he doesn't know how to handle things.
Tell us about this chimp. What is this chimp in our head? What does it do? How does it behave?
OK, let me give it a simple one, because, again, I usually go to food because many of us struggle with food. We all know what to eat, we all know how much to eat, but we don't. So at the beginning of the day, many times you'll say that today's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you say today was another disaster. And you sit there thinking, how can this be possible? It's me that puts the food in my mouth. So if you now scan the brain, let's see simplistically what's happening. So I go out for a meal and I decide to eat something very healthy. But as soon as I get the menu, my chimp brain says, no, we want something that's immediate gratification. And now it starts to think. It doesn't just have impulsive drives in it, an instinct. It thinks and it rationalises and fools me. It says, you know, you're allowed to have pizza with extra topping because tomorrow you can go on the treadmill and do it extra, and that's really healthy, and you deserve a treat. So it fools me into thinking that a treat is food and that I'll actually get on the treadmill tomorrow, which isn't going to happen.
So sometimes the monkey, if sort of out of control in your head, can lead you to make these bad decisions. It can be a negative force. So the monkey might be the one that says, look, you've got a job interview tomorrow, but let's go out with your mates and get smashed. Or
exactly.
Could the monkey be the one that says, you're married, but why don't you go and have a romantic clinch with Sandra from accounts? Is the chimp responsible for these things, or a cheesecake at midnight?
Some people's. I think it's careful because it's not a blame model. It's not an excuse model. You're absolutely 100% responsible. I'm a great dog lover, and my dogs at home are well behaved sometimes. But if one of them came and bit you, I can't just say, well, that was my dog. I'm 100% responsible. So you can't just blame this emotionally based brain and say, well, it shouted at you, or it ordered pizza, or it had an affair. I don't think that's reasonable. So it's not an excuse. What I'm saying is let's understand why it's doing that or trying to do that, and let's rationalise things which it can't do, like the consequence. So even going back to the pizza, if I sit down and say, let me think twice, let me just have my thoughts. Your thoughts are immediate gratification, which it's trying to say we don't know when the next bit of food is, and also we need pleasure. So if I now say, OK, we need pleasure, but let's have pleasure in being proud of what we do rather than what we eat. So I might change the way we have pleasure, but also I'll think of consequence. This brain can't think of consequence. So when we use this brain, which is not a bad thing, but it can be if it's impulsive and doesn't think things through. So it's like being with a partner you say you love, and if we put a video on, you see you shouting at them, or being really irritating with them, or, you know, you're not tolerant. And you think, is that what you want? The answer is no, I don't. So why is it happening? And if we scan the brain, this part of the brain is trying to say, well, if they shout at me, I shout back. That's reasonable. It may be reasonable, but actually it's not helpful. And so if you stop the person at that point and said, you know, you really love this person, what do you really want? And you'd probably say, I'd like to just go back to being me, who's calm and collected, get some perspective, and say, this is not going to be kind to shout back. It's not what I want to do, so that's not what's going to happen. And this is where it gets a little complicated. I've done it hopefully simply. You have. You've got a chimp and a human in this fight. The computer now comes to the rescue. And it's what we
and that's
put
the
in
data bank. That's the
data bank, because your beliefs now are what you need to get in there. Because the magic of the brain, which is, I think, is fantastic. It gives us an outlet. So when the chimp and human fight, this is what happens in real terms. Within a fifth of a second, information goes to the chimp who knocks us out, and it can do that with multiple hormones and transmitters to stop us. So when I say no for the pizza, the chimp just knocks me out. So now it's got free rein to order the pizza. However, the second thing it must do, it must turn to the computer and say, any advice, anything you need to tell me, because I'm not going to move till you answer, and it can't move. So the computer then must feed back what's in it. Now, if I've programmed it, the computer might say something like, which I've had with a guy who's working recently, his little daughter had cried and said, Daddy, please don't eat too much. He was overweight because we've been told at school it's bad for you. You die. I don't want you to die. And it really affected him. So this has to resonate with a person. And we put in his computer, next time you go to eat your food, think, which is the most important, my daughter's happiness or my food? Now, that may not work for people. It worked for him. So it is a unique thing.
And what you do is you create your own...
You create your own,
your own rewards. What do you call them? Autopilots.
Autopilots. These are beliefs
you talk about this early in the book, actually.
Stop the chimp in its tracks. So what happened with him is he goes to order his pizza, he knocks out his human who's saying, don't do this, but then the computer comes to the rescue by saying, you know, daughter or food. And if it resonates with him and he's rehearsed, then the computer will stop the chimp in its tracks.
So have you got time? We're going to take a break, and we'd love to carry on this conversation, if that's possible, with my panel.
Thank you.
We're fascinated by what you're doing. Very briefly, if we can, just finishing on the chimp, because it's central to it. Essentially, then, the chimp is, speaking in very crude terms, it is our emotional brain, in a sense. It's this separate little character that's in our head. It's not who we are.
It's emotionally based.
Emotionally based.
Still emotion. So it's not logic and emotion.
And it's an alien creature, because it's not us, is it? It's a character that's just landed in your head.
Exactly. It's a personality in which we see in research starts at 8 weeks into fetal life. And at 8 weeks, babies start to have this genetic
We can't
reaction.
kill it, and we don't want to.
No, you don't want to kill it.
But because sometimes it'll give us the chutzpah to go and say to the boss, can I have a pay rise?
That's what, I mean, because they've said, anyone I've worked with said permission. And Vicky Pendleton said that to me one day. She said, how do I murder the chimp? And I keep saying, you don't want to, you want the best friend.
But also, because the thing is, when harnessed, the powers of the chimp, so he or she can be the one that gets you to eat the pizza or have a liaison with Sandra from sales.
It can also be the one who stops you eating the pizza.
Well, that's it. And then what happens is that if you get the chimp on board with, no, we're on a diet because we've got Ibiza in 3 months, suddenly the chimp's like, oh, yeah, I want to be stick thin. I want those abs. And you motivate the chimp and he becomes your best friend, right? He gets on board with it. So I think that's it's very, very ingenious. And just briefly, the idea, the key point of the book is that we've got to negotiate with and live with this chimp and have a good relationship with the chimp, nurture the chimp, make the chimp comfortable and happy with these authentic, engagement.
Yes.
The reason why we've got to do that is because not only can we not get rid of the chimp, but the chimp receives all information first for human beings. So if I say to somebody, I don't like your hair or something, the chimp reacts first. So tell me about that, why the chimp has the first call on everything that happens to a human being.
It's a survival system. And so I'll take a dramatic example. If you met with someone, which would be horrendous, who had a knife in their hand, the chimp will make a very fast decision because it knows to either get out of this or fight them back or freeze. It will make a decision quickly for you, and its intuition is very powerful. Whereas if we go into the human brain, it will be very slow to think, and it will try and rationalise. Now, if I do this, it's too late. So the chimp's natural fast reaction is a survival, and it does warn us about people, it warns us about situations. It's that almost innate intuitive voice that comes and says, this doesn't feel good. And that's the chimp brain recognising, along with the computer, there's something you need to watch out for here. And we can't work that out. Our human brain cannot do that. We can only work with information.
And every encounter, every exchange that happens in our life is received first by the chimp.
It's the first by the chimp, and if it wants to move, it blocks us and then listens to the computer and moves. Or if it thinks there's no real danger, it can hand over to us.
Brilliant stuff. I think you'll agree. Absolutely fascinating. The book is out. It's called A Path Through the Jungle. Let's bring my panel in on this after a very, very short break. If you've got a question for Steve, why don't you drop me a line, mark@gbnews.uk. Maybe let me know if you've read his original book, The Chimp Paradox. I'm halfway through this one, really enjoying it. And if Sandra from Sales is watching, I hope you're enjoying the show. You've got lovely hair. See you in 2.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls, and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate, and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events And I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
Brilliant stuff. Professor Steve Peters is with me, but it's Selfie Sunday, so I want to see your cheeky, chimp-like faces. So why don't you send in your pictures, mark at gbnews.uk. I think we've got a few. Tatiana, do your worst. What have we got? There we are. Look at that handsome devil. That's an excellent beard, by the way. I wish I could grow one of those. Do we know who that handsome man is called? That's Christopher. Thank you, Christopher. What else have we got? Let's see our next selfie. Charles, look at that. Well, you got a bit of a chip on your shoulder there. Oh, no, it's a parrot. Aye, aye, ooh-ar. Thank you very much for that, Charles. What a fine figure of a man you are, and what a lovely bird you've got on your arm. OK, who's next? And Drew. Let's have a look at Drew on Selfie Sunday. What a winning smile. Drew, you're looking rather underdressed tonight. I feel very flattered. Is that a flirtation? Send me your number. Let's talk. Thank you, Drew. What a star you are. Well done, Tatiana and Alistair, for getting those up. We'll try and squeeze a few more in before the end of the show. Still with me is Professor Steve Peters, creator of the Chimp Management Mind Model. His latest book, highly recommended. What are we looking at? $14.99 to change your life. Absolute steal. A Path Through the Jungle, the psychological health and well-being program to develop robustness and resilience. Let's bring my fantastically resilient panel in, who don't need any mind management whatsoever. We have, of course, as we did earlier, Alice Grant, political commentator, Tommy Sandu, podcaster and TV host, and Ashleen Horgan-Wallace, TV personality and entrepreneur. Tommy Sandu, what do you think about the chimp paradox, the idea that there's a cheeky little rascal living in your head?
Yes, I think it's a great idea. And firstly, I've got to say, Steve, my wife has read the Chimp Paradox, and it genuinely changed her life. She's a 100 miles an hour kind of person. She wakes up, making lists, thinking stuff, and she's bouncing off different ideas and things and people. And the book really helped her just kind of, it sounds terrible, it's almost get a grip of her mind. She's bright, it's a brilliant mind, and almost gave her some order. So it was honestly game-changing, and I saw a massive difference in her when she read it only a few months ago. So that's number one. I haven't read the Chimp Paradox, but do you need to read number one to get number two? First question, I suppose, Steve?
OK, first of all, to congratulate your wife, because when people say it's changed my life, which it's really humbling and it's fantastic, because that's what I did it for. But I always say to people, don't forget, you're the one who changed your life. I didn't do that. What I did is give you some ideas and tools to do it, but you've got to do that. And so credit to her. Fantastic. And the answer to the second question is no, the next book is self-contained. And I was just explaining earlier, I wanted to offer the science in a very simple way, so people say, what's the background to this? Where's the evidence? And there's a lot of references. If there's nerds like me, there's hundreds of references at the back, so you can follow up individual things around the neuroscience. But it's still built for Joe Public who just wants something really simple and some practical advice that works based on the neuroscience.
But I just want to add to that, I'm a creative, right? So I'm an ideas person, I do stand-up, and the chimp is everything to me. So are we almost trying to make ourselves into robots, mate? Because you seem so controlled. I'm not. I quite like being a bit random.
You want to ask my friends that?
Okay.
No.
Like, you know, it's the chimp in me that will be in LA one night and go, let's go Vegas, right? So can I still do that if I'm in?
Yeah, I mean, the first book gave it away. It's a paradox. It's your best friend and your worst enemy. And I keep saying, in the new book, I've really plugged the positive aspects of the chimp. The chimp gives us laughter. The human doesn't laugh. So, yeah, I don't want to be a robot. So it's not that I'm saying this is a negative force. I think it's the most positive force that I've got. It's understanding why we sometimes allow it to become negative. It's like having a best friend who, as I say, mind's a bit inept, but you don't kick them out or criticize or squash them. You actually help them. But there are times I might say, you know what, leave that to me. You know?
Yeah, Steve, could I ask you, could I pimp you into giving us one of the brilliant examples from your first book about a guy, I think, that's meeting his girlfriend to go to the cinema. Would you mind? Would that be breaching the IP of your book if you were to give that example?
Not at all.
Because I think it's a great example, and for me, it really unlocked what the whole book's about.
It was a funny story, really, because I had readers who were just the general public saying, could you just read the book and see, does it make sense? There were many rewrites, as there were for this book, I think 18 versions. And one of them was one of my medical students who was very keen on this. And so he came along and he was the one who said at the end of a reading session, can I just ask for help? My girlfriend's got this really big problem. She turns up late for everything. And so I'll keep it brief. What I said is, right, there is a big problem. It's you. I think you're outrageous. And the whole room went quiet. And I said, you don't meet someone and tell them how to be. If she wants to turn up late, that's your problem. You know, you can either accept her as she is or move on. But I said, but to tell someone they have a problem is outrageous. So she didn't have a problem. However, if she'd said, I have a problem with being late, then okay, I'll work with her to see why she feels she has a problem. So it was just to give an example of how at times, especially with partners, we impose what we want from them instead of saying, you know, when you meet someone, you accept them as they are. You know?
So you had this late, was it late for the cinema?
Yeah. She kept being late for everything, to be fair, and it was driving him crazy. And I said, well, find somebody else. But
it was really, I thought it was fantastic because what you kind of said was a hypothetical situation, which is maybe you meet someone to go to the cinema, they're late, and you're getting angrier and angrier, and once they turn up, you know, the chimp's out of control, and you give them a piece of your mind, at which point they say, well, I'm late because I witnessed a car accident and I've had to give a statement to the police. And you're like, oh no, I've just given this person a mouthful because I let the chimp decide how I was going to manage all of this. Whereas whilst you're there waiting, and the person's late, you think, well, I'll suspend judgment until they're here, get an explanation first before acting. And that's an example of chimp management, right? That you just negotiate with yourself and go, well, look, let's hear the woman out once she turns up late.
Yeah, and I've seen this with parents. It's quite amusing when you watch them in action and they'll start attacking some poor teenager usually. I know they can be problematic. And then when the teenager finally gets the voice and says, but it wasn't that, it was this, and then they go mad and say, well, you should have told me. And they never got a chance. And so, you know, one of the things I say is that our chimp brain, this innate brain, tends to talk first, whereas the human tends to listen first. So even just simply saying, you know what, I'm going to listen first, you will change and switch systems. And by listening, we might then change what we're about to say or do. We might change an opinion just by understanding somebody else, whereas our chimps tend to want to give our opinions first.
Ashleen, would you read this book?
I'm fascinated. I've already ordered both of them while he was talking.
Wow.
I just really want to thank you, Steve, because in the last 10 minutes, I feel like my mind's already focused on controlling that little inner chimp that I've got going on. I love the analogy. It's brilliant. And you've simplified it so people like me could understand. And I bet you've put a lot of psychiatrists out of work after people have read the book. It sounds fascinating.
Well, I've had a lot of support and it's been very humbling. And at the time I wrote it, I was saying to Mark earlier, as an academic professor, you fear that I'm going to bring out this book saying there's a chimp and a human. But I just thought, you know, so many people have been helped clinically by it. I had to put this out. It's not for everyone. Not everyone will resonate and everyone is unique. So you've got to work it out for yourself. But no, I've had a lot of people write in and it is humbling. It is important, though, to say while people are watching this, that if somebody's mind is not well, then please get in touch with a doctor. This is for people who are what I call dysfunctional, which is all of us to a certain extent, where we just don't know how to manage our thinking or our behaviours.
Yeah.
It's not for someone who has to say a clinical illness, a depression. Then I would obviously wear my hat as a doctor and treat that.
But then sometimes people are just given pills instead of maybe just working through what's going on in their mind, and that was really interesting. When
Absolutely, and that was one of the reasons this came about, because I had so many people coming through general practice in to see me as a consultant that didn't need tablets, and I'd say, no, we're not going that route. We're going to get you to understand yourself, respect yourself, get your values there. Let's gain some perspective and see how to do that. And when you did this, people got better. They didn't need tablets. They needed to understand themselves and respect themselves.
Sorry, I have a question. So I'm a bit confused about the chimp analogy, I'm going to be honest. I always thought that the human soul was made up of 3 faculties, as Aquinas says, that we have...
Sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Yeah, would you, sorry, Alice, would you mind speaking up just with the distance in the
sorry,
studio?
I think I had a problem with that mic. But yeah, I'm a bit confused about the chimp analogy. I always assumed that, well, like the great philosopher Thomas Aquinas, and who inherited the philosophy from Aristotle and Plato, that the human soul is made up of three faculties: the intellect, the will, and our passions. And I'm not really quite sure how the chimp analogy fits in.
Okay.
Especially,
what you
obviously,
yeah, I got that. Yeah.
A chimp is a bit of like, I feel like it's almost degrading the human soul in a way, likening our passions to that of a barbaric animal. I'm not really quite sure.
Okay, let me explain. First of all of what you've given are models. None of them are accurate. They're models. They're trying to understand what it is that's happening in us. Can we explain it?
So the chimp is the better module than, for example, explaining our rational intelligence through our intellect and our will, which are obviously two faculties which we can clearly see every day in our lives.
I don't want to go into semantics. It's not for everybody. If it's not for you, it's not for you.
I'm just a university student, but I don't think there's...
I think what we're saying is now we've got functional MRI scanners on the go, we can actually look at the brain in real terms and say what is actually going on neuroscientifically and what is each part of the brain contributing to how we think and behave. And when we look at illness models as doctors and say, well, this is happening and this person can't think in a certain way, or there are certain speech patterns failing, so we're now starting to work out what the brain is doing.
Is that the fault of a chimp? And for example, when it comes to like human concupiscence and temptations, especially in relation to, let's say, food or lustful urges, surely that's not just because of a chimp in our brain, but just because of our natural human passions, which to resist those urges gains us merit and more control and more discipline, right?
Okay, there are no willpower circuits in the brain neuroscientifically. There aren't any. There are what you're describing.
The will is made.
Can I finish my speech? Can I finish?
Alice,
can I finish?
Alice, do let Steve finish.
Otherwise, I don't think you want to hear this. This is my impression. So I want you to stop and let me speak. All right. What I'm saying is you must believe what you believe. I'm not imposing. I'm saying to you, as a doctor, as a neuroscientist, we look at what the brain is doing. I know you've obviously got some strong beliefs. All right. When I did this model, one of the big cautions I had was religion. I didn't want to go into this and philosophies because that's not what I do. I'm pleased to say that this was tested out over 10 years on students, most of which had various religious beliefs, and all were quite happy. So when they understood the science behind it, this is not challenging any of those things. What we're saying is, if you look scientifically at the way the brain is working, it's simplified. The chimp system is not really saying this. What it's saying is, above your eyes, you have something called the orbitofrontal cortex. The orbitofrontal cortex makes very fast decisions for us and quickly, and it needs to do that. And what we're saying is the rest of the brain comes in to modify the way that this works. But we have a secondary part of the brain developing around the age of 2 to 3, where it starts to come into play. And this would be where you would start saying, where Aquinas might come in and so on, and the philosophers. This part works quite independently of the system, which is a bit strange. And we know that this part of the brain then uses rationality, factual information, logic, perception in a different way. So they're perceiving two different things. And what we find is there's a clash between the systems frequently. Sometimes they work together. So the idea of what you're saying, I'm just saying there are models, and this is a model. There isn't a literal chimp. What I'm saying is if someone can understand, and as I explained, it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. I made it very clear. You are fully responsible. What I'm trying to do is give people the ability to access their brain and say, that makes sense why I just shouted at someone, when actually that's not who I am or what I want to do. So I need to learn why that happened and what beliefs have I got underpinning that would stop me. So it is going into philosophy. It is going into, but these are all models of the brain. That's all this is. It's a model. The science I've given and the philosophies are in the references for people to have a read of it. Yeah, so it's not meant to offend anyone. That's the last thing I want to do.
Have you had any pushback
I'm just very interested. I think you're right that ultimately we do have responsibility over our actions.
Oh, I emphasise this 100%, which is why I mentioned about the dogs. You know, it would irritate me if someone said, well, I can't do this, it's my chimp. I'd say, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, you are 100% responsible for everything that happens. But what we've got, and most people are not in too difficult a place with drives such as sex drives, eating drives, territorial drives, group drives, but many people do struggle with these drives. And then for them to be told, well, you're fully responsible, is a big burden when they're saying it's not who I want to be. I really regret what I do. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Can I just ask, does this help with addiction as well?
Massively. We did, there was a group in Leeds took it up, and they were working, I used to work in alcohol and drug service as a doctor. I didn't know they'd done this, but they used it, because obviously I used this partly from that service, where people have got an addiction, and they sit and cry buckets with me, and I'm trying to help them, and they say, people don't understand what it's like. You know, but this group did, they'd called it a chimp with a drink, and they put me on stage, someone acted me, and they said it had been really revolutionary to them, and they did a tour. So I actually called them, and they came to my house, and they were great people, just saying, you know, do you mind if we use it? And as I say, I don't mind if people twist the model, if they pick bits, if they're selective. All I want is to give people something to work with, where you've got desperation in so many people. I just
want to say thank you.
You know, because my world is not a happy world, clearly. It's people that are really struggling. I just want to give them some hope to say, you know, some of the time, it's not your fault for the nature that we have, but it is your responsibility to manage that.
Yeah, although I don't think you can fix Tommy Sandu. I think that we're just...
I want to quickly ask...
Tommy, I'm only pulling your leg. We love you, Tommy. What's your final thought on this?
It was more... Where does Steve stand on sort of cancel culture then? Because if we're saying that the chimp can react to situations, we can say or do things or make jokes or maybe make a point that we then regret, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all developing, we're all kind of harnessing those three parts of the brain to work together. And we're in a society right now where if you make a mistake, you're out. How do you feel about that, Steve? Because clearly you're saying we can all work on ourselves. We are not the finished article.
Absolutely. Again, there's devil in the detail. But yeah, I worked, obviously my work was in forensics eventually, and I worked there with people who were colloquially called psychopathic, and then when you scan the brain it's slightly different. So we have genetic differences in the ability to have conscience and morals and so on. But I'm saying that my approach is let's all look at who we are and what we're doing and work out what works for us, which is why I keep saying, and I appreciate it's not for everybody, go with what resonates with you. All I want to do is help people to get the best out of themselves, and for a lot of people it's too hard to understand themselves. So I think none of us are the finished product, and we keep on learning as we go. I think we have an accountability, a responsibility, ownership of ourselves, but it's a case of helping people. A lot of people struggle horrendously. And it's sad to see that, and I'm trying to give some hope to them that yes, you can actually get a lot further down the line and get yourself in a much better place. Hence the book is about robustness and resilience.
And you know, I was raised in the Christian faith, and from my experience, your work is very compatible with those that have any faith, and I think that in a sense we all believe something, don't we? And I just think you need to be a human being for this book to be of some help. As I say, full disclosure, I loved it, but look, it's great to debate it as well, and it's always a great talking point how we do navigate towards being the person we want to be. My answer is buy a copy of this. It's called A Path Through the Jungle. Look, I'm getting so old now, I've got to do this with my specs. A psychological health and well-being program to develop robustness and resilience. It's already a bestseller. Find out why. Head to your local bookshop or Amazon. You can also hear the dulcet tones of Steve Peters in the audiobook version as well. Steve, what a privilege to have you on the show.
No,
thank you for making the trip, and do join us again when you're back in the big smoke.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the team as well.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. Excellent chimp management, by the way, Steve. At that point, very good. You see, he's the ultimate master, Professor Steve Peters. After this, a few more selfies, another great British game show, and we're going to talk about whether we've given up actually making phone calls. Is it now the death of the phone call? We'll talk about that after this.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss, and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
We've got a few more Sunday selfies. Thank you sending them in thick and fast. How about this? I believe we've got Jatinder. Let's... Oh, that'll do me.
Lovely.
Oh, my goodness. What an excellent set of toes you've got, Jacinda. That's moving the earth for me. Do people still do toe sucking, I wonder? Anyway. Jatinder, forgive me. I'm an absolute...
That
was my chimp out of control. How about this? This is Bounce. Oh, isn't Bounce gorgeous? Oh, what a very beautiful breed. Thank you for sending that one in. And how about Leslie Ann? Gorgeous Leslie Ann, the blonde bombshell. Yeah. Leslie Ann, thank you so much for watching the show. So, it's time now for the Great British Game Show. Yes, indeed. In the week that Bruce Willis announced that he was drawing the curtains on his decades-long acting career, it was also revealed that he and his wife have sold £65 million worth of property over the last 4 years. But of course, he's not the only celebrity to have properties worth millions. So let's see if my panel and you at home can guess the value of these celebrity-owned properties. That's right, let's play Priceless Pads. I will start with Ed Sheeran's house. Yeah. Let's take a look. I believe it's been extended several times. I'm told there's a pub.
Where is it?
That's a very good question. I'm embarrassed to say, I think it's West Sussex is my guess. Okay. I definitely know it's a sort of southeast of England, pretty nice part of the world.
That's £6 million.
6 million? Yep. OK, I've got the answers here. I can tell you...
I'd say 12.
Oh, you're going 12. Depends if it's got acreage.
I'm going to say it's with the land, right? At the pub.
Yeah.
Right, we got 6, we got 12. What are you thinking?
I'll go for 10.
You're going to go for 10?
Ashton is a property expert here.
Oh, I got the location. Does this help you if I tell you it's East Suffolk? Apologies, East Suffolk. It's not the South East. East Suffolk. Does that change your opinion?
Where is East Suffolk?
Please don't say 50 grand.
No.
I've actually got multiple choice. 2.8 million, 3.8 or 4.8. East Suffolk.
Oh, you were right.
Then 4.8.
It's actually 2.8. Absolute bargain.
It's a cheapie.
Well,
who knew?
Come on, Ed. Yeah.
How about... Yeah, we'll be heading over there now. I'm going to go on Rightmove later and see what I can find. How about Sir Elton John, old Reg Dwight himself? This is his house in Windsor, which is in Berkshire. I believe it was built by Henry VIII for one of his mistresses, although I believe Elton's parties are even better than that. We've got 4 million, 5 million or 6 million for EJ.
Oh, I thought it would be more than that.
6.
Yeah.
Another bargain, 4 million. Although I think just being Elton's pad would add another couple of million, wouldn't it? Steward's inquiry.
And Windsor as well.
Exactly.
What's going on? Where do we get that from? How about this? Meghan and Harry, this is in California, 9 million, 11 million, or 9, 11 or 13.
Where is it?
California, Los Angeles,
13.
Hollywood.
11.
9.
11's the right answer. Well done, Ashley.
There you go.
I know about my LA price.
How about Robbie Williams is 17.5, 19.5 or 15.5. So 15.5, 17.5, 19.5 in central London, Mayfair.
Got to be 19
price?
then.
What was the
Top
middle?
end.
What were the free choices?
15, 17.
He's next door to
15.
Robert Plant. 15.5, 17.5, 19.5.
15.5.
What are you thinking, Alice?
19.
19, what do you
19,
go?
I'm going top.
17.5.
Right in the middle.
I mean, in Mayfair.
And how about the Becks? They're in central London too. They're in Holland Park. What's their pad worth? Let's have a look at it. It's a lovely big old house.
That is lovely.
Enough space for Victoria to practice her singing.
And for her future daughter-in-law.
Yeah, design her clothes. So what do we look at? Oh, we've got multiple choice. I've only got a few seconds for this. Is it 27 million, 29 or 31?
Ooh, 27.
31.
31's the right answer.
Oh, my word.
Ashleen, you've won the game tonight. Thanks to my amazing panel and to you at home for watching. Stick around, I'm doing headliners after 11. And also, folks, I want to thank you so much for your company the last 3 days. We've had so many great debates, so many great guests as well. So, look, if you're enjoying the show, please tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. Look, lots to get through. If you want to catch up on any of the show, go to the app, or of course you can go to Twitter at GBNews to catch my big opinion monologue. Stick around for headliners. I'll see you in 3.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry with sunny spells for most, but rain edging in from the northwest. Let's take a look at those details. The southwest will end the day mostly dry with plenty of sunny spells on offer. The odd isolated light shower is possible, but it will be a fine evening for most. It will also be a fine and dry Sunday evening for the southeast. There'll be some fair weather cloud and plenty of sunny spells. Sunny spells will be plentiful across South Wales this evening too. Winds will be mainly light and there'll be a little fair weather cloud. There'll also be a little more cloud across the Midlands, but there'll also be some bright or sunny spells. An isolated light shower is possible, but for most it will remain dry. It's a different story across north-east England, where cloud will be increasing as rain gradually edges in from the north. The winds will also start to increase here through the evening. The wet weather will already be in place across southern Scotland this evening. The rain will be patchy in nature and turn heavy at times, with strong gusty winds too. Northern Ireland will also be cloudy, with patchy outbreaks of rain edging southeastwards through the evening. The winds will also be strengthening here, especially around coastal areas where gales are possible. The cloud, rain and strengthening winds will continue to edge steadily southeast overnight, reaching all areas by the morning. And that's how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain